Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to start this webinar. It's the second webinar of our Stages of Cow series. We're going to talk about pre-wean calves and how to feed them, especially if we're talking about large herds, because that comes with a lot of its own challenges compared to maybe a smaller dairy farm. And yeah, I'd like to welcome all our guest speaker today. I have Jason Hatfield here with me from Hatfield Manufacturing himself. Jason, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little
bit
about...
everyone. I'm Jason Hatfield, so one of the owners of Hatfield Manufacturing. The business is owned by myself and two brothers. It's a family-owned business. My father started it in the early 70s. And we've taken it and grown the business. My primary function, I guess, of business is design and production. More design than the production as we've grown, but most of the items you see today are items that I have developed through working with our customers. They've come to us with a need or a problem, and we've tried to solve that. To help them. Labor obviously is a huge issue, so much of the items you see are very much driven for a large herd, high production application.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time. And you're in Idaho right now, just so everybody gets...
Yep, we're based in southern Idaho. We've been here since the business was started. Home to a lot of dairy cows and calves for sure.
Great. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Yeah, and my name is Nele. I'm the veterinarian for Agri-Comfort International, and yeah, I'm here for more of the calf comfort and health side of things, and also to host this webinar with you. Yeah, just a brief introduction to the functions maybe of the webinar for anybody that hasn't listened to one before. We have a Q&A section embedded in this software. Feel free to use it to answer any kind of question you might have during the webinar. And just type in your question, and we're going to have a special designated Q&A section at the end. We're just going to go through our presentation, and then if there's any questions that weren't answered during the presentation, we're very happy to answer them. So shoot away with whatever you want to ask Jason about his products, or about the ins and outs about feeding calves. Okay. Well, let's dive in. I wanted to start with a little survey. Anybody who's been to, attended a webinar of mine before knows this already. I just wanted to ask the people that are here today what kind of feeding techniques they're seeing themselves. Do you have a farm yourself? What are you using? Are you more into the sales? What kind of feeding technique are you seeing in your region? I'm kind of interested in seeing that. So Jason, what would you say is the main thing you see around you in southern Idaho?
So this age of animals, I would say, is 99% bottle fed.
Like we see in the picture here, basically.
Yep. Yeah. That's a very, very traditional method right there.
And for example, that's something that I'm not used to seeing in Germany at all. Like when I was working on dairy farms, we only had one bottle on our dairy and to feed the baby calf's colostrum, and that was it. And otherwise we would always use teat buckets. And a lot of farms around us or in Germany in general have automatic feeders. But I guess that's also a little bit because of the sizes of the herds. Automatic feeders wouldn't really work for hundreds of calves. Would be a very expensive solution.
Right.
Yeah, I see most people voted here. I'm just gonna show you all the results. And we actually, it's quite interesting. This is quite evenly spread. So it would be interesting to see where everybody is from. Yeah, just to see kind of the demographics of who's listening here. because I do think that like we just said, that the different techniques have something to do with like regional preferences and like the sizes of dairies that we see in different parts of the world. But there's quite a few bottle feeders already.
There is. I'm surprised at the numbers, to be honest. That but there again, I think a lot of it has to do with the size of the operations.
Yeah, and our listener base is usually pretty international. I cannot say that we only have Americans or only, for example, Germans listening in. So I think that has a lot to do with this.
Sure.
Okay. Well, when we say feeding pre-weaned calves with milk, what are the key things that we have to keep in mind? What are like when we think about the technique, if we're not talking like how many liters and how many solids and stuff like that, we're talking about the technique of how to do it. And kind of the main obstacles in like, or the main key points you have to keep in mind to have a smooth running system is that you always have to keep in mind that the feeding temperature, so the actual temperature of the milk when the calf is drinking it, has to be very precise. And so it has to be between 38.9 and 41.7 or 42 degrees. And if it's colder, you really want to go closer to that 42 degree to give the calf the extra energy. So it's very specific, and that limits a lot of your like handling kind of the milk and feeding altogether, because you have to make sure that this is on point. And another point is that you really want to have a consistent quality. So between each feeding, between each day, you want to make sure that the milk solids, the milk, the fat, the protein is really consistent, so that those percentages should not vary. And to make sure that that you have this, if you feed whole milk, for example, it's quite easy because the whole milk on your farm is not going to change so quickly. So that is a very solid way of doing it, but it's also a very expensive way. So a lot of dairy farms are actually not feeding whole milk, but maybe waste milk or compound powder mixed with water. And especially if you're looking at powder mixed with water, then of course it's important to have a good source of powder to begin with, but then how you mix it is also important. You have to do the same ratio every day, and you have to make sure that it's actually mixed in completely. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, like big chunks of powder that are not being mixed in, or the fat is not solved in the right way, and there's like big globs of fat, or it's too hot and the fat is separating. There's a lot of tricky things that you have to keep in mind, and the ultimate goal is that the batch you feed in the morning, the batch you feed in the evening is the same all throughout the year, with like slight changes that are made gradually and purposefully by yourself, and not because your mixing technique is kind of hit and miss. And then a big thing is that feeding the calves is not like a one day or even like a once a month like other work tasks on a farm. It is really like a couple times a day task that needs to be put out on the same kind of schedule every day. It's another consistency thing that you need to be aware of, that calves really should be fed around the same time every day. It's like milking the cows. You shouldn't change that by a couple hours from one day to another. You should try to make it as steady as possible. And that those 3 points make it quite tricky to actually achieve a good result with your feeding technique and regime.
And I agree completely on that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of what we're thinking, like, oh, we have a calf, we need to feed it. It can't be that hard. I just take the bottle and mix it. Yeah. But if we have not one calf, but a few more that are waiting for us here, then the whole thing is getting quite difficult to achieve. I was mentioning in the beginning, I think before we started, that I used to work on dairy farms before I became a vet. And I actually had to feed around like 10 calves a day. So it wasn't too hard. I actually had like a little measuring cup and just scooped in the milk powder, and I had like a table on the wall for how many calves I need to do this. And on another farm, I actually fed whole milk, so that was even easier. Yeah, if you have rows and rows and rows of hutches like this, you're not starting with a little measuring cup. And yeah, the problem is kind of growing with the size of the farm. So if you have a big farm like that, the challenges are mainly like the mixing preparation of the large amounts. Like I said, you can't use a little scoopy cup that a family dairy might use. And you have to make sure that this whole batch has a consistent temperature. So not just, it can take a very long time if you want to heat it up, for example, with a heater. You have to have a system in place that can heat up hundreds of gallons of water really quick. And the other thing is the consistency of the quality with the mixing and everything. It's quite impressive how like large chunks of milk powder, for example, can hide in a large tank, and you can't see them. And you have to make sure that your equipment is fit to prepare the amounts of milk that you will need. And the next challenge you will face is like the actual time of distribution. First, of filling and distribution of the bottles. That's a temperature component mostly, because if you take too much time filling it, or it's like too like a little stream of milk or something like that, the first bottle you filled may be already cold by the time you filled the last bottle, or the last bottle you give out to a calf is too cold for the calf by the time you reach it. So you have to make sure that this whole process is smooth and fairly quick and fast running, so every calf gets the same quality of milk, and it's not like you feed the first 20 correct and the rest is kind of falling over just because your process is not fit to.
So one thing that we see a lot of farms doing, talking about the temperature, they will take and they'll start with good intention. They'll have some means to heat, whether it be whole milk, hospital milk, or even powder. They start good, but they tend to, let's say they have 200 calves or 250 for an easy number. And so they want a trailer feeding bottles that holds 250, which is fine. But they have one individual that tries to mix the milk. They try to fill the bottle, and they try and go out and feed and place the bottle. It doesn't work, because just like you said, you can't get there quick enough. You end up losing temperature. In the summertime, obviously, it's not as much of a problem. Wintertime is where you get into trouble. And then you take a Jersey calf, they tend to be small, they're lighter, and you give them a bottle that's too cold. Just them and drinking that they'll go hypothermic. The second mistake, especially on the smaller farms, is they want to use that hospital milk. That's great to use the product, but it is not consistent. When that cow comes in and she gives her colostrum, and then the first couple milkings, the milk fat in that varies wildly. So you may have a good batch one day, and then the next day it's way down. What we see, if that's going to be used, is people tend to test it, and then they will supplement with fats or powdered milk or whatever to get the consistency. Absolutely critical. Even better, if you are using hospital milk and those type of things, or whole milk even, is they tend to raise the fat even higher than the cow would give in a norm. Just gives that animal a little bit extra, because they are accustomed to nursing in nature multiple times a day versus a feeding in the morning and a feeding at night. I agree totally with the trying to feed in consistent time. If you start at 6 o'clock in the morning, then start at 6 o'clock every morning. And then if you're feeding twice a day, try to do it 6 o'clock in the evening to make a nice 12-hour shift.
Absolutely.
it's hard to do because obviously a smaller farm isn't going to have people there at night. So there gets to be some real challenges there.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing is, like what you said, was the one person doing it all. It's also really about like, how did you design your system to go? We had a farmer, you and I actually talked to him, and he explained us how often they have to touch a bottle, for example. They had to like take it out to like fill it bottle by bottle. He said the filling process was actually fast, but they had to take it, fill it, put it back, then they give it to the calf, take it back, take it out of the whatever they transported it with into like a washing machine, back and like onto the trailer. It's just, if you have to do this, it doesn't sound like a lot of work, but if you have to do this with a couple hundred or even more bottles a day, or like 2-3 times a day, that person's gonna get sick of their job really fast. And it's
efficiency is very important. Yeah. Do not try to eliminate any step that you can. That was the idea with the trailers that you see in the picture there. Yeah. You fill the bottle in the trailer, you transport it, you bring it back, you wash it in the trailer. Your time handling is just cut, I mean, into a third. Yeah.
Exactly. And I like to compare it, for example, to milking parlors. I think that is a task that farmers have to do themselves two times, sometimes 3 times a day. And at least here, they milk themselves. I guess where you are, they also have the milking crew. But then it's something where they really think about the whole like workflow of it and what you do in which order and how fast each cow is kind of, and they calculate it down to their herd and all of that. But I feel like calves, we're just like catching on that, because it's been kind of maybe like the wife's job or the kid's job to feed the calves in the past, and it's not as advanced as, for example, milking technique. But it really, if you look at it like logistically and from a workflow standpoint, it is it is also challenging. It needs to be systematically designed.
It does, absolutely. The thing that I think has to be remembered are those calves are your livelihood 2 years, 3 years down the road when they come into the milking string. I think a lot of times that gets forgotten. They don't recognize how important that animal is. And as the research has been done, they're finding that if you can prevent that animal from getting sick through good husbandry, the animal is less likely when they are in the milking herd to develop mastitis, to have the other problems, the milk fever, because they haven't had that strain as a calf as they're brought up. And so the mentality has shifted to really that calf in that hut, or however you're housing it, is just as important, if not more so, than the animal that is milking.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not a money producing group at this point, but it will be.
It will be, and it can save you money. A good managed calf raising will save you money in the end. It's just hard to justify that expense, especially as things get tight. Yeah. But at the end of the day, that is your livelihood a couple of years down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another challenge that I put up here is labor. And I know that you and I already talked about it in the past with several customers from all over the world. It doesn't matter if it's Russia or England, Netherlands, United States. Finding the labor is the hard part about it. If you have a large herd of calves like that, you can't do it yourself, or I don't know, your one apprentice or something like that can do it. You need to have like a proper team for it, and you need to have a team 365 days a year and 2 times a day at least. And that if you can make that feeding an hour shorter than another system would do, then it's actually an investment worth it, because you're going to pay it otherwise in labor costs, and maybe you have to do it yourself.
Right. And so one thing to remember is nobody is going to take care of that animal like you would, like the owner would. So to get the labor force and people that genuinely are concerned with the well-being, you try and make things as easy on them as possible, as efficient. The employee, if you can do it in 8 hours instead of 10 hours, the employee is going to be happier, and they're going to care about what they're doing more than, you know, if they're tired every day and feel overworked and underappreciated, they just don't take the ownership. So anything you can do to make it better, faster, cleaner,
easier,
just efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of like, we're going to talk about the solutions we're going to talk about. People are going to say, oh, that's going to cost a lot of money. It's true. It is an upfront investment that they have to make, but it's about everything you just said. It's about efficiency. It's about making the job easy, and yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a technique we've used. A technique we've used in our manufacturing facilities is I go out and whatever the job may be, would I want to do that job that way? As an owner, would I want to accomplish that way? And in raising calves or in anything, it's the same thing. Go out and look at how it's being done. Do the job yourself. And if you go, man, that's a horrible way to do it, there must be a better way, chances are your employees feel the same way. And when you start to invest in betterment, they see that appreciation, and they want to work harder. And things just go better.
I agree. Okay, well, let's talk about the solutions that your company has come up with in the last couple of years.
Okay.
So let's go through the process of like the whole feeding, let's say, cycle. Like let's talk about one feeding schedule in the morning or something. I started here with like preparing the milk and mixing it. So this is the stainless steel mixing vat that you're producing. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, so obviously the stainless steel for sanitary purposes. One thing you'll notice, our tanks are round. They have a smooth bottom. They're a domed bottom. All of those things are done so you don't have that powder getting hidden in a corner. One thing that we see is our people tend to they use an old milk storage tank that's rectangular with an open top. I understand why they do that for economics, but they're terrible from a mixing standpoint. They have corners. The solids tend to push to the corners and not get mixed, not get dissolved. You can see on this one, this particular one has a PLC, but load cells, scale systems. So you can weigh, so you know what's in there. Water weighs the same everywhere in the world. You're not guessing. Your powder, the same thing. You know exactly what's going in that tank. A thermometer, a temperature device. There again, you can start with the proper temperature of water. We see a lot of guys use a little handheld little thermometer. That's great. They get dropped. They get out of calibration. So we've tried to incorporate something that is accurate consistently. The number one mistake that is made when it comes to the mixing is the agitation. People do not put sufficient agitation in the tanks. There is an art to where the agitators are located, because round tanks tend to vortex and envision your washing machine as everything spins around to the outside, everything's thrown to the outside, it doesn't mix. So location of the agitators, angles, to get the turbulence that you need to mix the product. We've done a lot of playing with different things, different styles of agitators. I mean, it really is a science to getting that right, to getting it done quickly. And the second one that not a lot of thought is given to is if you overmix it, you start to get foam. And so there's a trick there to not doing that. You don't want to beat it into a whipped cream, if you will. So like I said, there's been a lot of science put into that, and then size it accordingly to what you're trying to accomplish. Bigger is not always better. There again, you don't need to feed all your calves with one mixing. You're better to run a smaller system and repeat it 2, maybe 3 times a feeding. Obviously much more than that on very large operations, but that allows you to grade your calves by age. You can change the formula a little bit. You may have some smaller animals that you're feeding a little more liquid, a little less fat content. Some bigger animals that you want to have some more energy for them, or maybe you're going the other way. Maybe the larger animals are more into consuming the grain and the hay, and so you can back the fat content off, run a little more water. So a little bit smaller can be better. Like I said, it all needs to be sized according to what you're doing. And then discharging, pulling out of these tanks, a pumping system that, again, as you fill, it doesn't tend to beat it up and foam the milk. That's a really a big problem. So we've worked very hard to accomplish that, not get it mixed and discharged without a bunch of foam in the bottle, because the foam will throw off how much milk you put in the bottle. Look, oh, it looks full. By the time you move out to feed the calf, you realize that it's only 3/4 full. So that's what we've done there. We offer lots of different sizes. Like I said, really, there's a lot of features. Anything can be added and taken away from the system. You don't have to have scales. We recommend it. Maybe it's not in the budget right now. It can be added later if need be. We offer all the different voltages of motors that are used throughout the world, so that really we can develop one that'll go about anywhere you need it to go.
That's perfect. So it's really not just like a fancy, like you said, milk storage tank with an agitator. There's been a lot of thought put into this to make it exactly for this purpose of preparing milk for
it has. We've actually built them. We've moved agitators around. There are formulas to calculate position. We've done those things, and then we've physically taken them out and run them and said, well, gee, that didn't work. We need a different agitator. We need to do this. How high should the agitator, the impeller, be in the tank? How close to the bottom can we get it? So it's trial and error.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, and then we come to the next crucial step, the filling of the bottles. And we already said that it has to be quick to make sure that the temperature is holding. And this is what you came up with.
We're unique in the sense that you see the nozzles come out of the top. It's silly when you look at it. I'll tell you the reason, and it's simply so that the manifold, the tube, stays full of milk. If the nozzle comes out the bottom, each time you close the valve or move it, it wants to continue running out. Whereas this way, the tube stays full, so the first bottle and the last bottle are getting milk put into them at the same time. That's all it is. We've sized the tubes to the amount of flow that can go down the tube, sized to the pump in the mixing vat, to try and get some consistency. Really, it's very simple. Again, it was a trial and error. It works well. We have lots of different sizes, clear up to, we have some that are filled, I think, 14 or 16 at a time.
Cool. And then you build it always accordingly to the bottle trailer, as you can see here, so you can fill up one row in.
Correct. And even if somebody builds something custom themselves, that the trailer didn't come from us, maybe they need one that has 9 bottles. We build them that way. You simply request what size you need, and we'll build it.
Yeah. And just maybe to let our listeners know, so you actually have the facility at your side, right? This is not imported from anywhere. You have the welding and everything.
Correct. All the things you're seeing, with the exception of maybe the clamps and the valves and that, but the manifold we build all in-house. The mixing vat that you've seen, we build all of that stuff in-house. That's correct.
That's so cool. Okay, well, we've already heard about the trailers, and now we're going to go into that a little more. So we talked about the distribution of the bottles, and we said, well, it has to be quick, so the temperature has been held in colder temperatures, and we wanted to do it in a way that we only have to touch the bottle once to give it to the calves. And
correct. So as you watch this video, they're moving along at a good speed, and I don't know which facility this is exactly, but they have a lot of animals. They run a two-man team on the trailer. You get into some of the larger trailers, they'll have 3, if not 4 people. We use the running boards on the side. We keep them low to the ground so that the people can stand on them. That's the idea. We realize throughout the world there are different standards. In some places, through regulation, you're not allowed to do that. We make them without the running boards. We make them with the tires inside the frame. We make them with the axles and that behind the trailer so that people can walk along and dispense the bottle. So we've tried to accommodate everybody, realizing that not everybody does it the same way. We have different safety features. The arm that you see up in the back that holds the rack so it doesn't fall down on the operator. All the pans are pinned into position. You know, they're stainless steel pans. They're very simple. The pan tilts, which keeps the bottles slid down to whoever is laying out the bottles. Really very simple, but very, very effective.
Yeah. And you already mentioned that the pan is tilting, and oh yeah, sorry, I have another here. Yeah, so this is the sizes that you can build, but you once told me you can accomplish basically whatever.
Yeah, 48. The little ones we do as a tricycle so that you can pull them by hand. I actually have a few now that are even bigger than 1,000 bottles, but you need you really need to size according to what you're doing. That is so important. If you have 1,000 calves, I would never recommend that you have a trailer that holds 1,000 bottles. You simply do not have the staff to do it as quickly as it needs to be done.
Yeah, it's about the efficiency, to find the right ratio between how many goals you want to do and like how much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and this, just
well, in this one here, sorry, no, not to talk over you. This is a very common way to wash the bottle. They turn the pan to the side. They'll use a pressure hose, rinse them off. You can put soap and water in them. Some people use a cordless drill with a brush. Lots of people use just a hand brush. You're just really after to make sure there's no solids stuck inside that bottle. They would rinse it in this position, and then they would go ahead and roll the pan upside down. It's set there to dry, ready for the next feeding.
Perfect. And it's obviously locked, so if you hit it with a power washer, it stays in this position. There's
correct. Yep, the bottles are contained. They cannot fall out. And
very cool. And then the next thing we need to wash is the nipples of the bottle. So this is with those red Merrick teats. I think we can say that. That is what you would usually see being used on those bottles, correct?
That's correct. It's a snap type, so it just pops on the bottle. Merrick's is a very common brand. There are numerous other ones. Really, the idea, you're only seeing part of the puzzle here. This one agitates, and it's just simply rolling them around. They're going to have some sort of a cleaning solution. Generally, prior to this, you would have use a milk crate, put the nipples in the milk crate. That tends to happen as the trailer is coming back to the milk house. They'll pull them off, pull the teats off, put them in a milk crate. As they get back, they will put them on a table and use a pressure hose to rinse them off to get the worst of the debris off and the saliva. Or we have a smaller sink that doesn't agitate, and you would just dip them, moving crate up and down a few times, take it out, and then they would be dumped into this where they just agitate. Either way works. It's simply efficiency. One thing with these that a lot of people don't realize is they will store the nipples in these tanks until the next feeding. They have a sanitation chemical. There's numerous different ones. They put a small amount of it in there so that nothing's growing, and they are stored in just cold water until the next feeding. And then they're scooped out, and they with the milk crate, they will dunk them in another rinse tank. Depending on the sanitation agent, there are some out there that don't require rinsing. They actually recommend that it's left on them. And then they're placed up onto the trailer after the bottles are filled. And as the trailer is traveling, the workers are putting the teats on the bottle as the trailer is traveling. Some do it if it's really cold out for some reason, they may stay in the building to put the teats on. I've seen people go so far as to have a cleaning agent in a weed sprayer.
Oh, wow.
A disinfecting agent. So after they've been handled by the people, because you have a potential for a cross contamination there, they will actually take that with that sanitizer and spray it on them and sterilize it again before the bottle is actually given to the calf. Oh,
that's cool. And then, one other thing that I saw is that people are putting the nipples in warm water before they snap them onto the bottles, especially in colder weather, because if they're a little wet and also if they're warm, then they're like slightly expanded, and it's easier to put them onto the bottle.
Yeah, definitely more pliable once they're warm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I had a lot of people on trade shows like try to do that with a dry teat onto the bottle, and it's quite hard.
It is, especially when they're brand new.
Yeah, and they go, I don't want to do this. I'm like, yeah, if they're worn in a little bit, and
it's fun to go out and watch the workers that have done this a long time. They can put that on with one hand, and I haven't mastered the technique, but they can grab it between their thumb and their forefinger and the base of the nipples in their hand, and they can just snap it on. I mean, fast. I have to use two hands and peel the edge back and all that, but they can do it so quickly. But you're right. They're warm. They're wet. The thing to note on the teats, people think that tend to believe that is something that lasts a long time. They don't. The teat only lasts about if you raise a calf for the 8 weeks, 8 to 9 weeks, that is all that teat lasts. It is a disposable item. And 100%. A lot of people have a misconception that, this is going to last for years. They don't. It's like I said, a couple months and they break down. The slit in the end gets too big. They start drowning the newborn calves, and you just have to throw them away and get a new one.
100%. I mean, I talked to Anna McIntyre from Milk Bar a couple months back, a couple webinars past, and their whole philosophy is about like using one teat per calf. And I mean, that's a big slogan of theirs, but I think in general that is a good rule of thumb for no matter what teat you're using, because you don't want a big hole in the front to just the milk to like kind of rush out, and you really want the function of the teat, no matter what kind of teat it is, to actually let the calf suckle.
Yes, the animal needs to work to get it. I mean, the digestion starts in the mouth. They need the saliva mixture with the milk. The better we can simulate Mother Nature, the better the success will be.
Exactly. Well, Yeah, so we can see when we're like mentally thinking about this whole process of like feeding the calves, that we really have a full line of feeding large scale calf operations. We can start with the raw ingredients, so to say, fill the bottles, feed the calves, collect the bottles again, and clean the whole equipment. And what you said before, that everything's just like part of a puzzle, I think that's it. Like you really try to figure out the different parts of this like big task and kind of broke it down into the different sections of it, and then there's different sizes and solutions, so we can really make a system that works then for any kind of scale of operation. And
yeah, that's really the key, is trying to make a puzzle that can be assembled to best fit your needs. As you're seeing in these pictures here, the smaller sinks that I was talking about, the resting tables, you know, the milk crates, all of those things are modular. They can be unbolted, taken apart, you can put more of them side by side. There are different length tables, different length sinks, to try and assemble it what best works for what you're doing. The mixing vats, as you've seen there, we have them. Obviously, they get into the bigger ones. Yeah. With those, you would have stairs that come with them. So, you know, try and size accordingly. You don't have to have the stairs for them, so your people are not physically going up and down. There's just a lot of thought that has to be put into it. They're generally, when you get into the calf operations that we're talking about, this is not something that you can go put in the tank room of your barn. You start to have to think about a designated building, you know, set up for what you're doing. Find your end goal. Where do you want to be? How many animals do you want to feed? And then start in that direction. You don't have to buy every piece of equipment at one time if you're going to feed, you know, 5,000 calves, but today we're only going to have 1,000. You can buy those pieces of the puzzle accordingly and then add to them later to make it a more feasible idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you just said was like, it's not gonna go into just like the stock into the tank building that you had before. When we look at this picture with a little tractor here, this is really like you want to have like a drive-through kind of situation to make this process as smooth as possible, so nobody has to like back up a trailer into a building or something like that, and also make it easy and comfortable for the workers to, yeah.
One thing to think about that we always try to suggest, and you're absolutely right, do not back up. On a farm, backing up means somebody gets hurt. Eventually it happens. So avoid reverse, pull through. Make your building big enough that your tractors can come inside. Generally, we have winter. Everywhere in the world has winter to some point. If that tractor is inside, it starts easier. It's less strain on the equipment. The sun doesn't crack the seats and fade the paint and all those things. So if you can bring them inside in the morning when everybody comes in to get started, the doors don't get open, the building stays warm, things just happen easier.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just like also do again with the thought of like doing it the way you would like to do it, like
for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's see if we have any questions here. If anybody has any questions, we're at the end of like what we wanted to present to you. This is the chance to like kind of type in questions if there are any. Otherwise, we have like a little video here that shows us the run through of the process that we just discussed. And maybe you, Jason, could tell us a little bit about like what like an average kind of farm setup. Like if you have, let's say 500 calves to feed, that's something that I've been asked quite a bit. What would be like the standard? Is that something you can like come up with from the top of your head?
I mean, yeah, a 500 calf, I would use a tank that is a few hundred gallons in size. Most of what you're picturing here is, you know, 400 to 500 gallon range. They're the larger ones. A 500 calf facility, I would use a bottle trailer that holds 250. So you're going to make 2 rounds every feeding. So this trailer that you're seeing now, that one holds 504 bottles. It's basically one of those pans on a narrower chassis. If you on a, I would tend to think that a 250 trailer is just narrower. You're on a 500 calf unit. You're not going to have these huge rows. Your hutches are closer together. So just a smaller, narrower trailer requires a smaller tractor, or even in that size trailer, a UTV is plenty capable of pulling them. So like I say, just sizing accordingly. The nipple wash or the teat washer that you've seen on that size of an operation, as a rule of thumb, if you have a trailer that holds 250 bottles, you want to have twice as many teats. And the reason for that is half of them are being cleaned in the milk house while the other half are being used. So when they come back, you just exchange and you're not having to wait for that wash. So in that particular application, that teat wash would only be like 6 foot long. Like I said, we build them kind of accordingly to what you're doing. You're kind of seeing the process here, that right there, they pulled them out of the sink. They're just giving them a quick dunk to get the worst of it off. I mean, the video is probably gonna do more justice than me talking about it, but they dump them in. As a rule of thumb, those agitated sinks, we figure about 100 teats per foot is a rule of thumb. So as if you're thinking and designing a system, that's kind of a nice number to go by. They're using a pressure wand. They actually use a pressure washer that you would wash your equipment with. That's what they're using a lot of times. A pressure hose also works. A pressure washer will be more efficient with your water than just a big blast hose will.
It circulates, so you can hold it in so it actually gets the whole sides of the bottle. Yep.
There's been many attempts made on a machine to wash a bottle. I can't say that I've found one that is super effective, that isn't very labor intensive. Really keeping them in the trailer, a person with a scrub brush can go through it so fast that it just works.
And I would almost doubt that you have to do that every single time. If you actually rinse them every single time directly after use, then there is not a lot of built up in those bottles.
Correct. And so there again, with a 500 calf facility and a smaller trailer, at the end of the day, you're only washing 250 bottles. You don't wash that bottle between times out to feed calves. The calf is only touching the teat. They're not touching the rest of the bottle. So they come in, they rinse them down, they pull the teat off, it's being washed, they refill the bottle, they put a clean teat on, and it goes back out. So at the end of the day, when you're done, you're really only washing half as many bottles. If you have time or less people, you can go even smaller, make 3 trips. It really, at the end of the day, you may take a little longer feeding, but you have less time cleaning up. You require less space. You'll actually use less water.
And another question that I've been asked quite a bit over the years is how many people do you calculate for that? Like, what is your rules of thumb there? Like, how many workers do you need?
On any of the trailers, once you get over about a trailer about 150, you really need 2 people on the trailer. Obviously, you're gonna have a person driving the tractor, 2 on the trailer. There tends to be somebody in the milk house that stays, because when that trailer's out, if you're making multiple trips, they're batching the next process, so you don't have the wait time. Obviously, the larger trailers, once you get over up to the 500 bottle trailer like you see here, you're going to have 3 people on there. 2 of them are probably laying out bottles. As you see here, 1 person is snapping the teats on. For efficiency, they're not doing that in the milk house. They're doing that out while it's moving. You get into the 616, the 840, the 1,000 bottle trailers, you're going to have even more people. Very common to see 4 people. You've got to maintain the speed. You need to get those bottles from the milk house and laid out in 20 minutes. We like to see the trailer go out, lay out everything, the animal have time to eat, and the bottles picked up and back to the milk house in 1 hour.
No matter the size, basically.
No matter the size, it doesn't matter. Add people to get there because you start losing temperature. One thing to note, our pans on these trailers are all sealed. You can fill them with hot water when you leave if necessary. It gets kind of messy because the water tends up, if you tilt the pan, starts to splash on your employees. But it is, for some reason, if you had to wait to feed, something happened, a tractor broke down or whatever, you can take the hot water, the hottest water you have, pour it in around the bottles, and it'll help maintain that heat until you can get out there and get the animals.
And I mean, as long as the bottles are stacked to each other, they're very closely stacked. They're not going to cool out that fast. But as you if you have half a trailer like this, then obviously there's a lot of attack area for cold air to hit. A crucial thing. Okay, well, sounds really good. Let's go ahead, and I just asked a little look out what we're going to talk about next. So we're going to move along in this stages of cow series. We're going to move up to stage 3. I'm going to do a little summer break as everybody's going to go on vacation and farmers are going to be busy with work over the summer. So in August, the exact date is to be determined. We're going to talk about calf barn design, and especially about how to move the calves through the barn, how to design your pen layout, and kind of just the workflow in your barn to make it smooth for the baby calf that arrives there to kind of move through it to become a well-grown post-wean calf. And
we have some really neat products to go along with the transition from the hutches to larger settings. We've got some really neat trailers that we can scale the animal as they come onto the trailer. The trailers lift up and down so the animal's not jumping off something way up in the air. The trailer will lay flat on the ground for unloading purposes. We've got some really neat things there. And I'd like to know, I mean, if anybody has questions, and feel free, Nele, to put my my email up there. If people do have questions that they think about tomorrow, shoot me an email. I can direct you if I can't answer them here, or pricing or something. We can get them to one of the sales team, whatever. No problem. Like I said, we love to answer questions. There's nothing worse than having to figure it out when somebody already had an answer to it.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I'm going to be in touch with everyone that was here today. I'm going to send out the link to the recording in case you maybe want to watch it again or share it with colleagues and friends. And yeah, absolutely. Feel free to contact me or Jason on any inquiry, question, or whatever it is. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Thank you, Jason, very much for taking the time to talk to us today and explain.
Thank you for putting it together. I enjoyed it. I look forward to more of them. Just keep you in the loop.
Okay, perfect. Well, have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.